I'm Claire Thompson, 46 years old, married for over 20 years. Mother of 2 grown kids who no longer live at home. Caretaker of a house that breathes routine, echoing softly with memories of packed lunches, piano lessons, and the occasional slammed door during teenage storms. To the outside world, I suppose I looked content, organized, stable, a woman who had made peace with her life. And maybe that was true? For the most part, but beneath the calm surface, there was a silence inside me. Not unhappiness, exactly, just a quiet that stretched a little too far. A stillness that settled not only into my days, but into my skin, into the corners of my heart. And then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, that silence cracked open. I had set out to do something mindless, cleaning out the storage closet in the guest bedroom. It was a chore I'd avoided for months, and yet something pushed me toward it. Perhaps it was the spring air, seeping through the open window, or the soft melancholy that often comes when seasons shift. I pulled out boxes labeled Christmas, kids' schoolwork, old costumes. I smiled at the sight of a tiny ballerina tutu, now ghostly with dust. I set aside a broken photo frame I'd meant to fix years ago. And then, in the very back, I found a pale garment bag. No label, no memory of what it contained. Curious, I unzipped it. There it was, a nurse's uniform, white, with a faint bluish sheen. Slim-fitting, modest but unmistakably feminine. The kind you see in old films or cheeky party catalogs. I blinked. I had forgotten it existed. For a moment, I just stared at it. And then, with no real plan, I ran my fingers across the fabric. Cool, smooth, and something fluttered inside me. Not a decision, exactly. Just a nudge, a whisper. I slipped out of my jeans and sweater, unhooked my bra, and pulled the uniform on. It fit, still, just barely, but it fit. I turned to the mirror and saw someone I hadn't met in a long time. The way the collar framed my neck, the way the white cloth hugged my waist and flared gently at my hips. It wasn't about being sexy, not at first. It was about remembering. There had been a time when I wore that kind of thing to play. To tease, to feel like more than just a wife, a mom, a caretaker of chores and lists. I looked at myself and laughed. Not out of ridicule, but surprise. There was a spark in my eyes that I hadn't seen in years. I didn't wear the nurse's uniform for him that day. Not really. I wore it for me. To feel something ripple under my skin again. To feel visible. But when I heard the garage door rumble open, something shifted. My heart pounded. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a speech or a plan. I hadn't even put on lipstick. But I didn't change. I didn't hide. Instead, I walked down the hallway, barefoot, the soft cotton swishing gently around my thighs, and waited near the kitchen where the light was softest. When he came in, I turned to greet him. And I'll never forget the way his eyes met mine. That moment changed everything. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. It was all there, in the pause, the breath he held, the way his gaze traveled down my body and slowly back to my face. And suddenly, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was on fire. That night, we didn't talk much. There were no jokes, no awkwardness, no explanations. Only touch, skin, breath. He took me in his arms like he hadn't held me in years. Maybe he hadn't, and I responded like a woman who hadn't been touched. Really touched? In far too long. We undressed each other with trembling hands and aching restraint, as if we were afraid the moment might vanish if we moved too fast. My back arched against cool sheets. My thighs parted with an ache that felt both new and ancient. He kissed places I'd forgotten could shiver. He moved with a hunger that startled me. Not wild, but reverent. And I gave in, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because inside that nurse's uniform, I had remembered I was still a woman. Not just a wife, not just a caretaker, not just someone who made lists and folded towels and answered questions with a tired smile. A woman. That night wasn't about fantasy. It wasn't a costume. It was a rediscovery. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The sheets twisted around my legs, the uniform discarded on the floor. Like the remnants of a dream. My body still hummed, my lips were swollen, my skin flushed, and every inch of me felt alive. I lay still for a moment, just breathing. Not out of fatigue, but reverence. Something sacred had happened, and not just between our bodies. I had felt his hands relearning me, not just where I was soft or sensitive, but where I had hidden, where I had locked away the warmth, the ache, the hope that intimacy could be more than just routine. That morning, as he slept beside me, his chest rising and falling in the pale light, I watched him. And I realized something. He hadn't changed, but I had, or rather I had returned. I wasn't sure what to do with that realization at first. It felt fragile, like a soap bubble. One wrong move, and it would burst. So I moved through the morning gently. I made coffee, fed the cat, smoothed the sheets over the bed with more care than usual. When he finally joined me in the kitchen, our eyes met, and for the first time in years, I looked away first. Not out of shame, but because I could feel the blush rising to my cheeks. The memory of my moans still echoed faintly in the back of my throat. It wasn't just that we'd made love. It was that I had wanted it, craved it, initiated it. That sense of ownership over my body, my desire, had been dormant for years. And now it was wide awake. That night, I didn't wear the uniform again. I didn't need to. The memory of it lingered. In the way I brushed my hair before bed, in the way I let my nightgown slip a little lower than usual, in the way I let my hand rest on his thigh under the covers, unspoken and bold. He responded, of course. He always did, but now it was different. It wasn't polite, it wasn't expected, it was electric. The next time I wore the uniform, 2 nights later, I didn't wait until he came home. I texted him. No words, just a photo, a tasteful one. The hem of white fabric, the curve of my hip, the edge of a stethoscope I found in a drawer from my old CPR kit. He was home in 20 minutes. And I was ready. I had lit candles, just a few, enough to cast flickering shadows along the walls. I'd pulled the curtains halfway shut. I'd tied my hair in a low ponytail and applied a touch of red to my lips. I stood by the bedroom door when he arrived, my hands behind my back, heart pounding in my chest like a wild drum. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. When he touched me, it was with the urgency of a man both grateful and greedy. As if he couldn't believe this was real, and also couldn't get enough. And I opened to him with the ease of a woman who had rediscovered her hunger. And now refused to apologize for it. I moaned against his mouth, arched into his fingers, whispered his name like it was both a plea and a prayer. That night, I didn't just feel pleasure. I felt claimed, cherished, desired, worshipped, and it unraveled something deep in me. It wasn't about the uniform anymore. It was about stepping into a forgotten part of myself. A woman who had desires. A woman who wanted to be touched, explored, devoured. Not because she needed it, but because she deserved it. I began to notice the little things in the days that followed. The way I stood taller in the mirror. The way I chose my clothes. How I took the time to lotion my skin slowly, lovingly, instead of rushing through it. Like another item on a checklist. I began to light candles even when I was alone. To drink my coffee from the nice mug. To dance, just a little, while cooking dinner. Everything felt warmer, deeper. He noticed, of course. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. His hands lingered more when he passed me in the hallway. His eyes followed me with that same soft ache that had once lived only in our early years. And every time I wore the uniform again, and I did, it wasn't a gimmick anymore. It was a language. It said, see me, touch me, love me, like you once did. And he did, again and again. I began to look forward to the evenings in a way I hadn't in years. There was a new rhythm to our days. Mornings remained as they were. Coffee, news, light conversation. But as the sun dipped and the light filtered orange through the blinds, something inside me stirred. I would slip upstairs before dinner, sometimes without a word, and open the drawer where the uniform now lay folded, like a secret waiting to be touched. Each time I put it on, it felt slightly different. Sometimes it clung tighter, reminding me of the curves that had softened with time. Other times it slid on smoothly, like a second skin. I began to experiment, adding a silky pair of white stockings, a strand of pearls, or leaving a single button undone. Just enough. But what surprised me most wasn't his reaction. It was mine. Looking at myself in the mirror, I felt beautiful, powerful, erotic, not in a loud or flashy way, but in a quiet, molten whey that began deep in my belly and spread outward until even the tips of my fingers tingled. This wasn't about pretending to be someone else. It was about rediscovering the woman I had always been. The one who knew how to tease with a glance. How to let her bare thigh speak volumes. How to unbutton slowly, deliberately, while standing in the warm pool of light beside the bed. And when he would find me there, sometimes waiting, sometimes mid-motion, sometimes bent over the dresser adjusting my stocking, I didn't feel nervous anymore. I felt bold, desired. His gaze, when it landed on me, was like a slow lick of heat across my skin. And in that gaze, I